Today we have Mohit, who is the founder of Contify with us. And Mohit and we met because we were in the same office, in the same co-working space by coincidence. And today we are sitting down with Mohit just to learn about his journey and his venture and his lessons, right? So Mohit, why don't you tell us about your background and what you're building?
Thank you. Thank you, Kulmani, for having me. I am Mohit, born and raised Delhi. Went to IIT Delhi, mechanical engineering. Spent few years in the US for in the consulting domain, technology consulting primarily. Did MBA from INSEAD before starting my own venture. Came back, worked for a few years, 4 years to be precise, in figuring out what is the market, what is the right problem statement that is well suited for me to start a venture, and then started Contify in 2009, and it's been now 16 years. Very eventful journey. We'll talk about it.
Correct.
And what we are building is a market and competitive intelligence software. It's a platform where the customers, mostly enterprise customers, they monitor, they track what is changing in their market landscape in terms of industry trends, competitor movements, what their customers are building, launching, changing. So keeping a track on the market landscape is what our software is doing.
And what year did you graduate from college?
2000.
2000. So right around the dot-com bubble.
Yes. Right around the dot-com bubble bust. Yeah.
And technology consulting was pre-MBA.
Yes, that was pre-MBA. After MBA, I was sure that I will not be doing consulting. Yeah, I wanted to be much closer to where the action is.
Correct.
And I really wanted to see the impact of the work that I'm doing, which sometimes is a bit far when you are doing consulting for other clients.
Yeah. And so how was your experience after the dot-com bubble working in the US? Because I know there was, I think, a long-term market cycle which kind of came to burst. So how was the scene in technology at that time?
I was in consulting, so we were consulting to large enterprises, but much bigger than dot-com bust. What happened, the incident that changed a lot in our market landscape was actually 9/11. So I was in New York. I was working in Manhattan. I was in World Trade Center on that day when that incident happened. So it was a few miles away. So I moved out of World Trade Center to Midtown during that time. So what changed is there were a lot of big engagements that I was involved with. I was with Deloitte Consulting at that time, and we were working with very large banks in New York. But and our engagements were at the peak; they were about to be delivered. But when that incident happened, besides all the other things that checked from the business and economy point of view, it was very uncertain that how the world will change after this in terms of both economy, in terms of people. It did change. The Iraq war and all those things happened, but that the outside change also reflected on the inside change, because I started questioning the purpose, the point of whatever I'm doing, because the projects I was involved with, I was passionately involved in trying to make it a success.
Correct.
And then all of a sudden, in just a moment, it just got over. Yeah. So you kind of internalize that how fragile things are, and what you are chasing, what you are running after. So there was deep internalizations because of that incident, and that was, I think, the point where I thought about the impact of my effort and the work that is happening. So it was less. We were not involved so much with the dot-com companies at that time. It was more of a valley situation. I was in the East Coast. We were mostly working with large enterprise, where things changed because of other reasons.
Correct. I also remember that day when 9/11 happened. So my brother was also in New York at that time. But I was very young. So I was maybe in probably 5th standard or 6th standard. Yeah. But I do speak, remember he called home and then we were discussing what happened.
Yeah.
So he was on Wall Street at that time.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember
the
day it happened. It was globally a big incident, right?
Absolutely.
It changed a lot of things.
And very, if I remember that time, there were two managers who who interacted or engaged with us in certain way. One was a person who said, call your homes immediately and tell them you're fine. Larry was his name, Larry Calabro. He's a very senior partner in Deloitte still. And I remembered him because of that comment, that's what he said. And we all called home like your brother. And then there was another manager. He said, take a 30-minute break and then we'll start. As we were walking down the 50th floor, I was on the 50th floor. During emergencies, elevators don't work, so you have to walk down. So his comment was, let's get back to work soon. Yeah, so this is so I'm sure he didn't understand the gravity of the situation, or none of us. But thinking about the families of your employees or your team members, that was the first thought that came to his manager. And after 24 years, I still remember him as a person I respect him still for the thought that he had. And I'm sure he was not saying that with calculation. This is who he was. Yeah. He thought about his team and their families members. So that's why he's a great leader, and he's a very senior person still with Deloitte and building Deloitte.
Yeah. I think it's just when you have reactions like this, right? It's mostly subconscious.
Yes.
Like what is your, the core, right, which kicks in, right? How do you react? And consulting, because I also spent, as you know, a number of years in consulting, is so much people-centric because they are the only assets which consulting firms have.
True, right? True, absolutely.
Well, now they are doing knowledge products and other things, etc. But the core is still people, right? It's a people business, it's a relationship-based business, right? So teams, leadership, they become important. But before engineering, how was your experience growing up in Delhi? Did you always want to go to engineering, or what kind of environment did you grow up in?
Yeah, interesting. I think the people at my age group, mostly born in 70s, 80s or earlier, most of us came from family backgrounds with very limited resources, just because of the state of Indian economy at that time and the opportunities at that time. I also came from a very similar background where it's a one-bedroom apartment and you have to work hard so that you can get a job. And then you can make your own career out of it. So like a very typical middle-class family, engineering or doctor is what people can think of. So engineering was something that was the only option because of the lack of knowledge that I had about the opportunities which are possible. I still don't know what other opportunities I would have had at that time. So, but the background was such that there was no engineer in my family, which was a very big thing. Getting into an engineering was a very big thing. And I think when I look back, when I reflect on what the transitionary moment or the key moment, I did that reflection during my essay writing days of INSEAD, like why did this happen? Yeah, and I think the key defining moment what I realized was that my father had to take a loan of 5,000 rupees to put me in a private school, so that I can do good in my life. Like I can. So when he did that, so that's kind of seeded a thought that okay, I have to make something out of this. Like I cannot just let it go or waste. So then I think that was the seed of working hard. That's where it started, and when you try very hard to be successful, to achieve something, then you start getting some answers or some paths starts opening up. So for me, fortunately, it was I think very early in 9th or 8th or 9th standard where I realized that. That my days are not as productive as it should be very, very early because of that incident that happened in 6th standard. And when I started reflecting, I realized that if I write it down, what is happening and what I can do to improve it from 9th standard, that has a tangible or a very, very impact on how I was evolving as a good student. So the habit of analyzing your day, of what am I doing wrong and what should I do better tomorrow, started very early. And I think that was one of the reasons I was able to get into IIT and get a very good rank, so that I was top 500 at that time. And my parents just made sure that I was not disturbed by any other social or family obligations. So they gave me enough room for me to just continuously focus on. And sometimes when you don't have options, that's very good also. Yeah. You just know that this is what it is, and then you put everything that you have to get there. Yeah. I realized
less is more.
I realized that the first day I reached US and I wanted to have milk, to just have some milk, and I went to a grocery store, and there was like the whole aisle full of different kinds of milk, and it was so confusing. It's like, I wish I can go back to my mother dairy and just get a milk and drink milk. Yeah. So something was similar with engineering. You just work hard, take an exam, and you just don't think anything else.
Yeah, I also had a similar, you walk through the aisle and it's always at the end.
Yeah.
It's called the loss making, because you have to walk through and you will pick up something
in between.
And then you have 5%, 3%.
Yes.
Chocolate milk, flavored milk.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
So,
And the same kind of confusions I see in when you have too many options at anything that you are deciding. So there is optimal options that you have to choose from. Options are good, but sometimes, especially when we see very young kids, when they are sometimes very confused, because everything is open. They can do pretty much anything that they want. That's where sometimes it's damaging.
Especially with the internet.
Yeah, exactly. You start something and then I don't like it. You start something else and you say you don't like it. There is no they have options to quit, because something else might be better. So the time when you're not quitting and you are building your muscles, that's the time which is required. Sometimes you have to force yourself, and sometimes situations force you, that you are just building your muscles and not giving up and doing something else.
Yeah. And you continued this daily journal writing, and I still see that you write.
Yes.
Because last year I noticed when you were in this office,
yes,
that you're writing very detailed notes.
Absolutely.
So
yes.
How does it help you now in your role as a leader?
Today morning I wrote. So I wrote every morning. Today morning I wrote. I was reminding myself, Mohit, you are the CEO. Do your job. You should not be doing the product marketing role, product marketing analyst role, because there are some holes in the system. So when you are running a company, you see the whole picture, the big picture and small pictures, and there are holes in the system, and there is a tendency that you can jump into that hole and fix that. It is sometimes good. It is required. You do it, but then you have to pull yourself out, because if you keep filling the holes, you will not do the job of what your role is truly, to understand customers, to understand market, to make sure that everything is aligned. Then you become too narrow. So the switching between both the roles, go very deep and go very high, is sometimes not very intuitive or natural. And you have to force yourself. So how it is helping, as I can just think of what is happening today morning, as I was just telling myself, Mohit, get out, come out, focus on the hiring of VP of product marketing role, which you have not invested enough. You are waiting for resumes to come in. You have to think about reaching your own network to be able to find that person, rather than writing the use cases and definitions that you are working last few days. Yeah. So try to fine tune myself every day. As am I doing the right thing? So it's a lot of rewiring required to be done, which I find that if you sit on a chair and you think, it might feel that you are doing analysis, but it is many times you are just fooling around yourself. For me, again, this is a very personal model of kind of refinement, is when there is no distraction, which means it has to be non-digital. It has to be pen and paper. And when I'm writing it with my hand, the sentence which I write is 5 or 10 seconds, then 1 second or half a second. So when it's a longer time duration with a thought that you have, it gets time for your mind to actually go deeper in that thought. So for me, the writing of my thoughts and questioning, why am I doing this and why am I not doing this? And then reading it again after a few days. This is what I decided. What were the reasons I could not do this? And then going deeper, a layer deeper. Yeah. So this is a kind of a daily exercise since 9th, 10th standard, where I feel that I'm able to navigate and take the journey where I would like myself to take.
Correct.
So that eventually at the last moment and days, I can say, yeah, it was a well-lived life.
Yeah.